welcome back. You have just tuned into Women's AM. This morning I am joined by Sister Yasmin and our guest panelists Sarah Feroz and our special guest Sister Shapla Koli. Jazakallah khair for joining us, Sister. Again, it's been lovely so far, mashallah. We've have quite a lot of interesting discussion. Now, Sister Shapla, a little birdie tells me that you've been dabbling in a bit of writing.
Oh, I'm trying to get into blogging and just write about my life being a mum.
MashaAllah, and how's that going?
Alhamdulillah, I'm enjoying it. It makes me look into lots of other resources, and I've actually met lots of sisters online through it, all over the world actually, from Canada to Australia.
Alhamdulillah, I've actually read a couple of your pieces, and it's very interesting because you talk about a lot about your experience with your little daughter, teaching Quran, preparing for Ramadan. So mashallah, very much you've got input for this show today, inshallah. Looking forward to discussing that. And what about yourself, Sister Feroz? You have a lot of experience in working, teaching, having classes and circles and doing tafsirs with mothers.
Yes.
What is your experience with mothers and learning?
It's amazing how when you become a mother, your zeal to learn Quran, your zeal to teach your kids Quran, it gets really, really on the, it becomes really strong, and they try their best, mashallah, whenever we're doing tafsir circles or seerah circles, especially seerah, you can see their love for Prophet Muhammad.
Do you find that when you become a mother, they find that there's more of an urge to learn the Quran?
Definitely.
There's need to pass it on to the children.
They want them to be on the right path, and they know that these are the resources, you can help them to be on the right path. And mashallah, I think for myself, personally, when I became a mother, I became more into Quran and seerah more because I want my children to teach them.
Why do you think, Sister Shapla, that it's really important for women to be, or for us to be talking about a mother's relationship with the Quran as opposed to fathers?
Mainly because in the early years, children spend a lot of time with their mothers. They emulate the mother. They do everything. They spend an awful lot of time. My daughter spends a whole day with me. It's important for us to be able to pass that on to our child.
Okay, we're going to look more in depth into that, inshallah. But first of all, let's get cracking and go straight to her views, where today we'll be discussing motherhood and the Quran. Many, if not all, first-time moms will agree motherhood changes everything, and it takes us a good part of the first year to come to terms with it all. Trying to fit in the fard ibadah becomes a challenge, making any extra ibadah a burden. When you love the Quran so dearly, your heart starts to feel heavy. When you can't spend time with it, you start to miss the Quran and desperately need to rebuild your relationship with it. But it is so difficult, and sometimes we may not know how or where to start. So sisters, how do we overcome these issues? As always, this is a live discussion with the sisters on the panel, and we would love to know what you think. Please do call the studio to put your comments or questions to the panel. The number is on your screens now, or you can tweet us at Islam Channel, #115. Now then, just going back to that discussion, Sister Shapla, it fits in nicely with some of the things that you're involved in terms of women as opposed to fathers. Why do we need to put more of an emphasis in the discussion about women and her relationship with Quran?
As I mentioned earlier, in the early years, children spend more time with the mother. It's our teachings, what we teach them, what we give them that day. We build the emotional character, basically. It's important for us to have that relationship with the Quran so we can pass it on naturally and not make it a lesson-style teaching. If we are acquainted with the Quran, we will naturally pass it on. And that's what I realized as soon as I became a mother. It becomes more difficult, but it's very important. We need to sort of keep it at the forefront of our thinking.
Sometimes there is an element of where sometimes we think that we have children now, we don't have time for learning, we're too busy. Is that the case?
No, alhamdulillah, we living in the world where technology is just right on the tip of our finger. So, mashallah, there are quite a lot of apps and stuff. If we mashallah, like I have 4 boys, so it's quite juggling with them. But mashallah, every, the end part of the day, you just do 10 minutes of tajweed or 10 minutes of Quran learning, and it's easy. It builds up day by day, day by day.
There's so much actually we can learn from the sahabiyat, who were mothers. What are some things that we can learn from Sahabiyats, and which Sahabiya?
It's the way their dedication was towards Islam. The hukum came and the way they implemented it. Like the example of Nusayba bin Ka'ab radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and she was a mother of 4, and she was, you know, fighter, and she has reported so many ahadith as well, which has jurisprudence in there. So and the whole her life, mashallah, and she was from the Ansar. So she accepted Islam so early, and you can tell that each and every stage in her life she implemented Islam as it was coming. So it's really inspiring to read about Sahabiyat.
I wanted to add to that. My heart is attached to Zayd ibn Thabit and his household, because from a very young age he wanted to spend time with the Prophet. He wanted to go everywhere with him. His mother did everything in her ability to make sure that the Prophet found out that Zayd ibn Thabit recites the Quran just like the Prophet does. She went to the Ansar, the men in her community. She told them to pass the message on. She did everything for her son to get him close to Allah, and in doing so she became close to Allah.
MashaAllah, you look like you really want to jump in here, Sister Yasmin. Go ahead.
It's amazing how we're talking about different types of people. It's not, you know, when you think about how knowledge came down and how people were seeking knowledge, there wasn't an idea of men alone seeking knowledge and women alone seeking knowledge. Everyone was seeking knowledge. It wasn't a fact that, you know, we were in competition with either genders. And it's quite amazing that, you know, Aisha radiallahu anha, the Prophet's wife, she was the primary source for ahadith and fiqh rulings. And Imam al-Zuhri said, if the knowledge of Aisha radiallahu anha was gathered and all the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were gathered and other women, Aisha radiallahu anha's knowledge would, you know, take over and supersede, and it would be better than everyone else's. So this is a male speaking about a woman. So we have to always remember there's not this competition in Islam about men and women, and in seeking knowledge, everyone should seek knowledge. And the Prophet ﷺ said, seeking knowledge is fard upon every Muslim. So whether it's male or female, it does not matter. And we should really implement that into our lives and how we approach knowledge.
But there is something in the whole saying about the hand that rocks the cradle.
Yes. Because mothers are the shapers, isn't it, of the next generation. And the more knowledge they will have, the more knowledge they can give to the future generation.
Yes, I think the Quran should be looked at with it's knowledge, but it's also our guidance. It's the way we live our life, and it gives a lot of comfort too. We can seek lots of a lot of comfort in the Quran, and we can put that in our household, in our everyday life. I think sometimes we forget, and it's okay, it's ibadah, it's part of ibadah, but it can be about everyday life too.
It is. I mean, it's here as a guidance, and I think what part of the relationship that's really important is the fact that our children understand it's not there just to learn to recite.
Definitely, that's one thing.
Sometimes there tends to be a bit more emphasis on just being able to recite with beautiful tajweed, which, mashallah, of course, is very important. But I mean, what does the Quran mean to us? Is that not
I think
really
kids
important?
are really intrigued. I find that when you treat them the meanings and little tafsir, they are really asking the brilliant questions, because they really started to see as a way of life rather than just some book which they have to recite and memorize.
No, absolutely. And they actually, in terms of when they're reciting doing this, I find that my daughter, if you give a little bit of brief basic tafsir on each surah, automatically when you say the name of the surah, she goes, oh, it's about that one, isn't it? But that helps them in realizing that there's something about this surah, that there's something there, that there are lessons that I want to take from it. It's about something, it's not just the word that I'm learning.
And that's the difference between how it was for me, for example, and how I want to change it for my daughter. I want her to love the Quran from knowing it, not just be a task that she does weekly. Or
Do you also find that there is a disadvantage for women when it comes to learning the Quran or being able to gain qualifications in it, Shapla?
Definitely there is. With the cultural restrictions is probably plays a big part in it, because traditionally women aren't meant to go out and study, especially when you've got a family and you've got other responsibilities. But I also think things have changed, especially for us here. There's lots of things online, we have more classes, the masjids are more accommodating, and I think we should definitely take advantage of it and not let cultural restrictions dictate what we do.
And the fact that there are so much more resources out there,
Yeah.
sort of, it's shown that there's more of an awareness within the community, the fact that they're
Definitely.
providing.
Exactly. And do you have, just as I said, you can put the YouTube on and you can find any tafsir you want. You can find any commentary on the tafsir you want. There are so many, mashallah, new women who are doing it, and they're giving the insight of women and Quran. So mashallah, the resources are there. It's just the mindset that sometimes we think that we have to cook food and clean the house. But while we cook and clean, we can actually listen to that on our iPod or you know, or on any listening device. We can do that.
There are so many opportunities now, even in the masajid. There are so many new masajids being built, and they are very accommodating. Like Sister Shapla said, you know, there are toys for children. There's a play area for children. There are kettles. There are everything. You know, you can't. But there are very few excuses that you can find as a mother. Oh, I can't because I've got a daughter, a baby, or a baby son, or you know, whatever. You know, there are everything. There's so many things. Like in my local masjid, there are pillows. You can put your baby down if they fall asleep. There are blankets. There are changing areas, and this is a small community I'm talking about. So, you know, in bigger, larger Muslim communities, there are so many facilities. I think women, especially women, need to go to the masjid and be, you know, feel the presence of how it feels to be in the masjid, and make their children aware that this is the masjid, this is, you know, where we should come. They should be used to it. So I think it's a beautiful thing if mothers can do that.
Jazakallah khair. That's really interesting discussion so far, but we will continue, inshallah. But so far, it's been very informative. We will be going for a short break now, but just before